All right, good afternoon. So today I wanted to get into some of the common criticisms of large language models that we're hearing and why, for the most part, they actually don't matter. Now, whenever new technologies come out, especially early stages, people love to nitpick on like the little things, why they don't work. I mean, you could go back almost to every technology, like especially in like the tech sort of products, right? And you'll find people criticizing them and saying like, thing X is never going to replace previous thing Y. Like, cars could never replace horses. The horse industry is far too embedded, and nobody's gonna want a car. They're not blah blah blah. They'd have like a list of criticisms or whatever, right? And then all of those would ultimately get addressed, and the industry would eventually get disrupted, right? You could say the same like cell phones when they first came out. They were like big and clunky and like bad reception and expensive, and battery life was terrible and all that, right? So large language models, basically the same thing. And frankly, like if you've been watching these things since like the first sort of public large language models that we had access to, like GPT-2 back in like 2018 or 2019, and you'll see just how far they've already come compared to where they were before, and why kind of like people complaining about them now in the state that they're in is basically ludicrous. So let's go through some of them. Okay. Common complaint number one, I'd say, is the AIs hallucinate, right? Or large language models hallucinate. They provide you information that is made up, factually incorrect, but in a very confident, misleading way. Yeah, this can be the case, for sure, if you don't know what you're doing. Now, you have to understand, again, that the benefits of large language models are not only the large language model by itself. The large language model is extremely powerful when used as a tool in a process. Okay, I cannot stress this enough. Just using a foundation level model without any additional context input, whether that is from source from a database, like a vector database or otherwise, or using like web search grounding tools, then yes, it can certainly provide hallucinated responses. That being said, the latest models are getting much better for this still, and this is rapidly becoming less and less of a problem. And again, this is in isolation, right? Once you get to the point where you are using the large language model in a system that is leveraging external data sources and injecting that into the context window, you'll find that the likelihood of hallucinations drops dramatically, to the point where if you have a leading edge model with a good data source or good grounding through web search, you're good. You know what I mean? Like hallucinations are like a thing of the past, more or less, I would say still. To like the, 95th percentile maybe. I don't know. I guess it would probably vary from sort of focus areas and the specific topics that you're on. But from what I've been experiencing still, this is largely less pronounced than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. Okay. So yeah, if you are dismissive of large language models because of hallucinations, you're wrong. Sorry. You're hallucinating yourself, or you're just being misled by clickbaity headlines, or maybe some experiences that you've had that don't take into account, again, like I was saying, the fact that large language models are most powerful when they're being used within a process that has external data sources injected into the context window. Okay, next one. Large language models can't do thing X better than humans. Okay. Sure. Now there's basically been a series of benchmarks across a wide variety of different occupations, different industries, that more or less says otherwise still. I mean, we are talking 95% of roles where the large language model is in fact superior, or at least on par with like the experts in a field. Okay. So the data speaks for itself there. And again, if you are not able to experience this yourself, again, I question how you're using the large language model, right? If you go to like the free version of ChatGPT and then expect it to give you PhD level results in quantum physics, well, your expectations are incorrect and you're using the tool incorrectly still, right? That would be like complaining that your gun doesn't shoot anything when you forgot to put bullets in it. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the tool. It's an operator error, let's say, still. And that's ultimately what a lot of these are going to come down to still. Okay. Okay, another criticism of large language models, and this is actually a little bit more specific to reasoning models, saying large language reasoning models don't actually reason. And yeah, this is true. The way that large language models work is that it is using probability math to figure out sort of what the best sort of output should be, okay, in terms of what the input was. So yes, that is true. There is no actual reasoning. There is no logical process that is going on. It is pure probability math, right? Now, does this matter? I would say no. I would say that if the results are what you want, that's good enough still. It doesn't matter. I don't care how the sausage gets made as long as I have delicious sausage, if that makes sense, right? So basically, the whole idea behind RLHF and the reasoning models are using the same concept as RLHF, just with a different format for their fine-tuning data on the reinforcement learning level. So rather than the conversational Q&A for their training data, it's these large sort of reasoning steps, right? Now, that's fine if it's not actually reasoning, because ultimately the result that you're getting is a superior result than what you were getting before. So it is a big improvement. It's a step in the right direction. And frankly, you can just look at the reasoning steps and then the output, and you can see that that makes a difference, right? So they're very useful. They give great outputs. And while yes, technically they are not, reasoning, frankly, I don't think it matters still, right? Because the result is what's important here. And when you're getting the result, what more do you want? So I think you're just nitpicking at this point still. Okay, another common criticism of large language models is large language models will never lead us to AGI or ASI still. Okay, so here's two things I have to say about this. One is, I would say that basically between the top large language models integrated into processes that have a highly sophisticated vector database, plus let's say like a really good integration with Google search, like you get with the grounding tool on Gemini Pro. That is like that, plus all of like the best multimodal models, whether it's the best video, best audio input outputs, the best segmentation models. If you put all of those together and then like put that into a humanoid robot, and like we've done a lot of advancements just in that area as well, and use that as a control system for the robot, and a reasoning system being able to see and understand the world, I dare say we already have all the pieces to make more or less AGI still. Some people will disagree with me, but again, I think that at this point, when you're looking at the raw performance of these things, I don't understand what more do you want to get to that point. I mean, like, the accuracy level on the segmentation is insane. The fact that we have foundation models without additional fine tuning that are able to do, you know, PhD level benchmarks across like so many different domains. We have highly convincing video and audio that looks and sounds just like a human. We have incredible transcription abilities. And like, it would be child's play at this point to put all of that inside of a humanoid robot that you know, is able to operate like our OS2 or something. And you're off to the races, man. Like, yeah, I don't think that if maybe you could say it's not like for sure AGI right now, but it's like so close that for the average person it might as well be, right? And then as far as that, LLMs are not going to scale up to get us to ASI, I say again, that doesn't actually matter still, because what LLMs are doing is supercharging research, right? Research and development now can go, I dare say, exponentially faster than it could sort of like before we had these really high quality models. And basically that's going to get us to ASI significantly faster than without it, right? So yeah, maybe LLM is not going to be what scales up to be ASI, and I would actually tend to agree with that. So I think just because of the nature of how large language model works, there is going to be a plateau based on, you know, sort of what we can ultimately come up with in terms of training data and training algorithms, and just the inherent sort of nature of how the transformers architecture works. But I would also say that without a large language model, and again, I believe that it's an important part of a tool in a system, and it could very well be the case that artificial superintelligence still uses large language models as part of its process, right? As an important part of a system. You know, just like I just described here, where, you know, it's using all these different models, services integrated together. ASI could basically be the same thing, but just sort of pumped up, you know, multiple levels, right? And then also there would likely be maybe 1 or 2 or 3 more fundamental breakthroughs in terms of research that would fill in the missing pieces that would be required for ASI. And this could be something like true reasoning, basically, like, or really transparent, explainable AI, something like a neurosymbolic reasoning, stuff like that. Okay. So yes, LLM's not going to be ASI just by itself. ChatGPT is not going to evolve into ASI, but it's going to supercharge research, get us there a lot faster, and highly likely that it plays an integral role inside of the processes of what ultimately ASI ends up being. So yeah, I mean, I think that sort of goes over most of the criticisms that I can think of off the top of my head. Yeah, if you can think of other criticisms of large language models, maybe you can let me know in the comments. Yeah, just to make use of these things, you know, don't be such a hypocriticizer, in the words of the great George W. All right, we'll see you next one.